Hi, this is Aleem with Aleem's Home Bike Videos, and today what we're going to talk about is how to change a wheel and how to solve problems that you may run into while you're cycling outside or when you're trying to fix it at home. So we're going to go over some solutions and talk a little bit more in depth about the problems. Alright, so let's start. So in order to change a wheel, what you need to do is first obviously take out the tire end. There's several types of bolts. There might be a quick release that your bike might have, but mine is hex bolted on. So you would obviously just use a hex wrench. This is a normal ratchet hex wrench. Keep it on the thing and just loosen the bolts. Don't have to loosen too much. Okay. And my bike is obviously a track bike, it's a fixed gear bike. If you were to have a road bike, it might be a little bit different taking the wheel off, but essentially all you would do is quickly just take the wheel off and keep it in front of you. And my bike, or my tire, it wasn't flat, but you see right here, it initially became flat, and it had a very fatal injury where there's actually a hole completely through the tire's layers. And I fixed it with a little patch that I'll show you how to make. But let's just say that it went flat. That thing just looks like it's going to actually fail pretty soon, so I was going to change it anyway. So obviously that's what you would hear on the road when it happens. And the way you fix it is to use these tools called tire levers. You can get them at any local bike shop or buy them off the internet. They're very cheap. They're like maybe $4 to $7 a pair. Just kind of stick it in the tire. And you see that the tool itself has this kind of ridge on it. And you see that it actually just fits into the spoke. So you can do that to make your life a little bit easier. Otherwise, you can kind of try to force it open with strength. But I don't really suggest that. I suggest, use the tools to their full advantage. So you would just kind of, once you open a little bit further, you might find that your tire is a lot more strong than mine and might take a few times. So just kind of go around, just kind of pull it out of the tire bead, pull the bead out of the tire rim. And then after a certain time, you can just honestly just kind of slide this around. Your tools aside, and now you have the first layer of the tire out, and you see on the other side the tire is still inside. And this is actually the easiest way to change the tube. You'd find where the valve is, kind of push the tire to the side, and just pop it out of the rim. And as I showed you that very fatal injury to my tire, which I know a lot of you might face on your daily commute, especially if you ride a fixed gear track bike and need to skid your wheel to stop every now and then. Just take out the tire just like I should, just like that. It honestly just kind of peels off. And let's say like I had this injury while I was coming home late at night, like 11 p.m. and you don't really have your tool bag with you. You don't really have everything you need. And let's just say you have an extra tube with you, and you have the tube that was inside the bicycle, this one, which was could be this one. And all you honestly have to do is just take any sort of. I had these pliers on me, have a sharp end, and honestly I just cut out a little patch, and you see that it's actually inside the tire. All I did was I licked it and I put it right where you would have the hole, and just put your tire, as I'm about to show you, on as usual, and you can go about your day. And honestly, I suggest you fix this or change your tire as soon as possible because it is a very irreparable injury. So let's just say you go and you get a new tire, okay? And you want to install the tube. So when you take the tube out of the box, or however, it's going to be very compactly wrapped. You kind of just want to blow it up. You can either use this hand wrench. There's other options if you prefer these CO2 tanks that allow for, pull this out. This has been here in a little while, so it might be a little bit harder to pull out. There we go. Still in. There you go. Okay. And it's honestly just a little CO2 can that holds about 16 grams of CO2. You just screw it back in and install it by just screwing on the lid. This is another alternative if you prefer. It's kind of a little bit different technique to use, but it's very handy. Otherwise, you can use a hand pump. I'm going to use this home bicycle pump that I suggest you get. It's available at any local bike shop. And just initially just blow the tube up a little bit. Okay, you don't have to do it too much, but just blow up the tube a little bit. Get it so you can see the shape. Okay, make sure that it would also show you if there's any, you won't feel a leak at this point if it's a small leak, but if it's a massive leak, you'd obviously hear it initially, so kind of helps you out on that front. To install the tire, I said, people do this differently. The way I do it is I just install the tire bead. When I say bead, I mean the actual thick, kind of resistant part of the tire. It's called the tire bead, and this fits onto the rim. And let's just say you put this tire on, and you're pumping up your tube, and all of a sudden the tire either bursts or it pops, or you see it kind of coming out of the rim. Or let's just say you're riding around the street and there's nothing, very flat road or something, and you just run into, just going on flat land, all of a sudden you have a puncture, and you look at the tube and it has a huge laceration on the tube, and there's obviously no tire mark, that no kind of trauma you would feel on the, no threat, glass or anything like this. What you would do is you look on your tire rim, you look on your rim, and you see that the rim is actually composed of all of these spokes and holes where the spokes fit in and thread into. And there's usually a strip of tape that you run across to make sure that the tire doesn't herniate, because the tire pressures are 120 psi. They can herniate through these little holes. And so you just get a tape. And if you have that problem, honestly, just put another rim tape across. It's a very common problem. I have a lot of people are asking me how to fix that. So just a quick shot. Honestly, all you have to do is put another line of rim tape on it. It's not going to affect the tube at all. It's not going to affect your riding performance or anything like that, or the comfort of riding. This is a new tire. It's a little bit more difficult to fit into the tire bead. Just 1 second here. These are Kenda tires. They kind of, especially if you get them off eBay, they kind of come very tightly wrapped, and when you try to unfold them, they just have a lot of memory in them, and so it's a little more difficult. But either way, looks like I have it on. Okay, so you have your tire on. Now you want to install your tube. So the way that this works is you get the tube. If you already pumped it up to a little bit of shape, find where the valve stem is. You have one of the tire beads installed, and you have the other one free, as you see here. Just kind of push the tire back, peel back the tire, however you want to do it. Honestly, the reason that you don't really worry if they kind of, you lose air when you're going in. The whole point of this is you really don't want to have the tire twist in its place and install it, because if you do that and you install a tire, when you're filling it up to about 80 psi, you're going to hear this really loud burst, and you really don't need that in your day. So just kind of install the valve stem, and then just honestly just kind of push the tire inside, push the tube inside the tire. And odds are you're not going to be changing your tire, so this will definitely be slightly more easy, but who knows, right? And like I said, pay very close attention to make sure that you're not twisting the tube doesn't get twisted or anything like that when you install it, okay? So I have the whole tire inside. Okay, problem number 2 that people have. When they're installing the tire and they start pumping up the tube, they'll notice that the tire kind of lifts off of the bead and kind of comes out. And this is just a recipe for disaster, especially when you're pumping up the tube or you're riding a bike. Immediately that tube is going to kind of pop through, herniate through, and it's going to immediately burst. So when you're putting it on, and one of the weaknesses in the tire is right where the valve stem is, okay? Because you have this extra space here, there's not enough room for the tire bead to fit into the rim occasionally. You might find that problem. So what I do is just start at about, 3 o'clock. I mean, if this was 12 o'clock being the valve stem. So at 3 o'clock, occasionally tires will have a direction on them. You'll see little arrows pointing you in which direction the tire rim should be. The tire should be installed on the rim, but it honestly doesn't matter too much. So you're just pushing the tire in. You can do this with your hands. And when you get to the valve stem, kind of install it, but push it through. So you see I'm having some resistance here because for the exact same reason that the valve is actually not being installed into the tire. One second, I'll show you in a second. sometimes you just kind of have to roughhouse it a little bit. Don't worry, it's not going to damage anything, but I see that the exact problem I'm trying to talk about. Much more difficult with this very firm tire. Here I'm going to have to kind of improvise a little bit. There we go. Kind of see how I popped it in? See how it's kind of fitting in the tire? Make sure that happens when you install it, because you should be able to freely move it up and down. Okay, if there's any sort of tension over here like I was experiencing, do what you have to do to get it in. And you can obviously just use your tire lever, give you some space, and then you can continue installing the tire. At some point it's going to obviously feel... At some point you're going to feel a lot of resistance. You can either use your tool or you can kind of just muscle it in. I suggest using your tools if you're not experienced with it. And then you have your tire inside, then you have your tube inside the tire. And what you have to do now, you can kind of look to make sure that the tube is not kind of riding in. All you're doing is looking at the space between the tire and the rim and making sure that the tube isn't coming out through there, because that will be, same thing when you kind of pump it up, you will eventually hear a very large pop. So then, kind of push your tube in, make sure that the tube itself is unscrewed, the valve stem is unscrewed. This is called a Presta valve. There's other types of tubes that have another valve called a Schrader valve, and you usually find a backward double compatible air pump. Just kind of fit it on, and now you're just pumping it up. And what you want to do here is you don't want to just pump it up super fast. Just kind of watch the tire, make sure that the tube isn't coming out, because right now I'm only at 40 psi and the tube has already kind of fully shaped the tire. No problems are there. You're going up to about 80 psi, and this is where you're going to experience some problems. You're going to start seeing the tube rupture out of the tire. You're going to start hearing things. I'm not seeing any of that. But like I said, if there's any sort of popping or anything and you don't really have an explained cause, just look at those where the rim spokes fit into the rim frame. Okay. So now I'm about at 120 psi, which is where I want to be. Unloosen it, tighten this up. All these bolts are right-hand thread. And if you were to have a road bike now, you just do very similar procedure. I'll probably make another video to show how to do it on a road bike, but you would just pop it back into whatever gear you were in when you took the tire out. Me, on the other hand, it's as being a single speed, very easy for me. I can just kind of pop it into the rear dropouts. Sorry, bike is pretty dirty. It's been raining these past few days. Kind of pop it back in, then install the chain on your chain ring. And I like keeping it a little bit loose. Just kind of tighten it into place. Make sure that it has enough tension. And that's it. That's how you fix a tire. So I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have any questions, you can either email me on my YouTube channel or call me or whatever you need. All right? Thank you. Goodbye.